Okay everybody, now in this video, kind of similar to Jay's video, I myself picked up one of these Autel OBDII scan tools for cars, I believe 1996 and newer. And as a matter of fact, I did have a recent issue with the car that definitely required a scan tool. And like Jay said, it was good to get one, should have got one sooner. But, everything went well, and I finally got everything fixed. But I just want to show you that this is very similar to the one that he has. And what we're going to do is, and you guys remember the video of my Mazda here, what we will do is we will go inside the car, and I will plug it in and show you what it can do. And here's the device right here. I have it plugged in under the dash right there. You can see my foot. And it's very simple. You can see you can just scroll through and choose things that you want. Now, normally what you do is, if you have a check engine light on, which I had a check engine light functioning, well, I shouldn't say functioning, doing stuff at some point, and I'll explain it to you later, but what you would do is you would use this to see what codes you possibly have that are causing the light to come on. Now, the way you check the codes is you want to turn the key to on without starting the engine. So, obviously the dash should light up, but the engine won't start. Let me just hold the camera here, okay? Alright, and then as you can see, you actually want the check engine light to be on when the car is on, but the engine not running. So what you would do in this case now is you would go to the scan tool, and you want to enter this right here. And as you can see here, I should point out too that this green check mark is on, which is good. The yellow and the red aren't on. And if you had a code, you would hit read codes right here and hit enter. And there are no codes stored in here, which is definitely a good thing. So that's all good. And now we'll just hit any key to continue. And I think there was something else I wanted to see. I might have missed something here. So you know what? Let me go back. Give me a second here. Yes, and then we'll enter this test mode again. Yep, no codes found. Mars, okay, good. That only comes up temporarily. I wish that screen was a little bit longer, but yeah. So when I was having the issues that I was, this definitely would have been a great thing for me to have, because I could easily have just done this, and then it would have told me what was wrong with what was going on. One other thing you can also check here is this ready test. I think this is what they use to when they do inspections. Green check mark. And I think this is stuff that they check for whenever they do inspections on cars. Now, here in Connecticut, they only do emissions, and it's every 2 years. So I know back in New York, it was safety and emissions every year. So it's a little bit more lenient here. But I think this is the stuff that they check whenever they look at info for your car. And as you can see here, as far as I know, everything is correct. The only reason why those two things have the no symbol is because I don't think this car is compatible with them. But that's okay. As far as I know, if this shows as it does, I think the car would pass inspection. So that's certainly good. So let's go back to the main menu here. And after the main menu, if you go back to the OBDII test thing, if you hit the live data thing, you get the complete data set. And here's some pretty fancy stuff that I guess any person who's more familiar with this can check. Now here's something interesting. That I think ECT is engine coolant temperature. Now it's in Fahrenheit, but it says 36.67. I'm pretty sure I just drove this car, and if you see the temperature gauge right there, it's up. So I don't think that this that reading could be a little incorrect. Maybe it changes when I turn the engine on. We'll find out. And like I said, there's all these stats here. There's engine RPM, which is obviously at 0 right now. A vehicle speed sensor, which is obviously the car's not moving, so that's 0. Yeah, you can see there's a lot of stuff here that they can look through to see how things are. So it's pretty cool. So you know what, let me go ahead and I'll start. You can see the coolant temperature went down a little bit. Let me go ahead and start the engine. Let me hold this carefully as I can. All right. Okay. Now, if we look at this again, yeah, as you can see. Now, I think DTC is diagnostic trouble codes So, and that's at 0, so I'm pretty sure that's a good thing. And yeah, the engine coolant temperature did go up a little bit. So if I scroll down now, yep, RPM 640, yeah, roughly 650. Yeah, I think 650 is the engine's rough idle, just about. Just for a test here, what we'll do is I'll push on the gas pedal just a little bit. Yep. Yep, so that gives you like, like real time or whatever. Hey, there's all these stats here that the car person can look through. So yeah, like I said, this would have been great for me to have back when my car was having an issue, which was actually very recent. And I'll explain to you what it was. So basically, the engine was running pretty well like it is right now. But on occasion, okay, I noticed there was issues with what I thought was the transmission, okay? Whenever I'd be going uphill, I'd push on the gas pedal to reaccelerate, but you'd feel this bump as if it wasn't able to shift properly. And I'm just thinking, oh my god, the transmission's acting up, that's not a good thing. So the way I got around it was, on the shifter here, there's an overdrive off button. If you, oh, there it is. If you look right there, that turns it on and off. Now, I would be able to get around that by using the overdrive off button to you know, have it downshift correctly when I'm going uphill. And I had to keep doing that a lot, so I'm like, okay, I got to bring this in, get it looked at, see what the issue is. But then, at one point, something else had happened. I was driving down a road going to work. Then at some point, the car was bumping really bad. And I'm just like, and what made it worse was the check engine light, okay? It didn't just come on, it was blinking. Now, if your check engine light is blinking, that's bad. That is not something you could ignore, and you should get the car looked at as soon as possible. And if it keeps blinking like that, you really shouldn't drive it. So what happened to me was, I was like, oh god, I slowed down, I pulled into a parking lot, everything smoothed out, and the light actually shut off. So I was like, alright, I turned the car off, sat in the parking lot for maybe a few minutes, just cool myself off. I started the engine, everything was fine, and then oddly enough, to and from work the next 2 days, everything was smooth, no check engine light at all whatsoever. Then on the day that I was going to work, the day I was bringing the car to the service place, which luckily is very here close to home, which worked out, it started bumping again, and the lights started blinking again. And you know, obviously, I'm like, this isn't good. If it does that, it's bad. But it smoothed out again. But this time, when the check engine light stopped blinking, it stayed on constantly. And that's when I was like, okay, I'm glad I'm bringing this in. This really has to go in. So then, what I found out what the issue was actually a very simple fix, and I'll show you in the engine. So obviously here in the engine compartment, I was thinking like, okay, you know, I checked the transmission fluid, it didn't smell burnt, it was red, it was at the right level. So I'm just thinking, I don't know what this problem is, the guy's going to tell me, I'm expecting the worst. But one thing I did remember was, my spark plugs had been in for a long time. Now, they weren't the original plugs, they were replaced, but they were replaced like 12 years ago. So that was kind of making me lean towards it, but I'm thinking, you know, why would an engine, if it's an engine misfire, why would it make the transmission do that? But then I remembered that when I had the timing belt done, you know, the transmission does depend on the engine shifting and engine running, firing correctly, being in time, all that stuff. So I'm like, okay, well, whatever. So, you know, I'm telling Jay about the check engine light, and, you know, he is correct. He was like, you know, if you have a scan tool, you could easily tell what the problem is, because if the check engine light is blinking or it's on constantly, it'll tell you what's going on. It'll give you a code. And obviously, if I had one sooner, I would have known. But I ended up getting very lucky. When I brought it to the guy, very nice guy, by the way, He simply said, yeah, I checked your spark plugs and they're extremely worn. Now, to be fair, I had been planning to change my spark plugs for the longest, not let's say longest time, for the last couple of months, and I was like, you know what, next oil change, I'll get them changed. Well, it definitely should have been sooner. What he said was, cylinder 1, this is a V6 engine, and this is the front right here. Cylinder 1, which is this one right here, okay, it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Cylinder 1 was the one that was misfiring, and that's what the scan tool had told him. Obviously, if I had that scan tool, I would have known that in advance. But thankfully, you know, there was no extra charge for it or anything, and I got very lucky. The guy changed all the spark plugs, did also a general tune-up, made sure the air filter was clean, all that stuff, and it was very good. I got the car back, and just, wow. When I started the engine with these new spark plugs, like, it started so smooth, I didn't even feel any shakes in the car, okay? And the last time the engine started like that, I couldn't tell you. So I'm just very glad that it ended up being a simple thing and nothing with the transmission. I drove the car home, transmission shifted beautifully, went uphill, shifted properly, engine ran smoothly. So I'm just like, thankfully, everything was all good. And like I said, guys, if your check engine light blinks, you cannot ignore that. And really, if it stays blinking, you should not drive the car because your engine's doing something that can definitely damage it if you ignore it. And you don't want that to happen. So, like I said, if you have an OBDII car, which most people do nowadays, get one of these. Seriously, they are so handy. They don't cost you that much money at all, and they can give you information on so many things. And again, I'm just glad that my problem turned out to be nothing major, and I'm glad it worked out that way. So there you guys have it. Car is running beautifully again, and you know, if the check engine light ever comes on again, which I have to admit, the last time the check engine light was on with this car, aside from the key being on with the engine off, was back before the car was even mine, and that was just because of a loose fuel cap, okay? So from then until now, which I'm going to say is roughly 2003, the check engine light never came on. So as a matter of fact, I was kind of wondering, like, is this light working properly? Is it detecting stuff? Well, sure enough, it was, because when the misfire was happening, the light let me know. So I'm just glad that it does work. And again, guys, if you have OBDII, get a scan tool. Very good tool to have and can help you diagnose problems when you got to bring it to a service place. And everything is working fantastic. Thank you very much for watching, and take care.